Hey everyone, my name is VirMcoy, and I want to tell you about my experience with Lyme disease and medicinal mushrooms. So, from 2001 to about 2009, I was really sick with Lyme disease. And in the early days, I had all sorts of crazy symptoms where I was feverish and delirious and bedridden and couldn't move my body right, and my thoughts were going haywire. And anyway, to make a long story short, I was in the hospital doing 40 days of intravenous antibiotics. And this was maybe like 2 years into being sick. And I had done a lot of antibiotics at this point and was mostly doing a Western medicine path, which wasn't, it was kind of helping, but it wasn't really doing the job. So I'm laying in bed in the hospital with an IV hooked up into my arm, getting intravenous antibiotics, and I was super delirious. I was just feverish, and Lyme gets into your brain, so it affects your pineal and your pituitary gland. So your sense of balance, your sense of self, your whole brain just feels like it's completely misfiring. You feel like you can't think. You feel like you're going crazy. And anyone that has had Lyme disease can tell you this, that it's extremely debilitating. So I'm laying in the hospital bed in this place of chaos where it felt like my brain wouldn't work. It was like, think brain, just not working. So I kind of got scared, and I was going into a little bit of some fear, but I talked myself into just breathing. So I'm staying in the bed, and I'm breathing, and it dawned on me, it's like I can still breathe and I can still love. And I had this sense of, what if I just held my brain like a little baby, And so I started to hold my brain like it was a little baby, imagining that I'm holding my brain like it was the most little tender baby, and all the love I could muster up, and just holding it. And it's kind of like when a mother has a baby, and baby goes, ah, and mom knows that means baby either needs to go to the bathroom, or baby needs to go, baby's hungry, or whatever it might be. Is you tune into that. So I'm holding my brain, imagining I'm holding my brain, and I'm asking my brain, what's the matter? What do you need? What's the matter? I love you, brain. I love you. What do you need? Just in that place of just compassion for my own swollen, suffering brain. And in that moment, I had a beautiful image appear in my mind's eye of a big tree. Like that. It's a big willow tree. But a big tree. And up the side of the tree, in my vision, was shelf mushrooms, or polypore mushrooms. Not the kind that grow on the ground, but the kind that grow up the tree. The polypores. And it was like this beautiful Jack and the Beanstalk thing spiraling up to the sky. And I remember just this feeling of like, I need those. What are those? And in my vision, I recognized two of them, because I also work as a field biologist. That is, I work in nature a lot. So I recognized a couple of them, and I was like, oh, that's reishi mushrooms, one of them. And the other one, I was like, that's turkey tail mushrooms, from those little stripes it has on it. And the third one, I didn't know what it was. But when I got out of the hospital, I looked it up, and it was chaga mushrooms. So this is 2002, 2003. This is before, mushrooms are now super trendy and super cool, and thank God they are, because they're powerful. But this was early. I didn't know much about any of this. So I did some research, and I looked up to see what these mushrooms were for. And I used the work of Paul Stamets, had some books out, and some other people. And it's like, oh, reishi's been used for thousands of years in Chinese medicine as like an immune booster. And turkey tail, the same thing, and it's been used as an anti-cancer drug called PSK. And chaga is another incredible immune boosting medicine and antimicrobial, and these go back thousands of years, especially for use in Chinese medicine. So it became pretty clear to me that, like, I think I need these mushrooms, and it made me realize, it's like, well, maybe we don't have to be a shaman in the rainforest to communicate with the plants. We've heard all these stories about how the plants speak to the shamans or whatever. Maybe we can do that here in the West, but we have to get our minds out of the way, getting our brains out of the way, just like I did in the hospital. So I started to look into this more about how I, was intuiting these remedies. But the clincher was that I was reading in National Geographic a few months later about Otzi the Iceman. And Otzi, as you recall, was this frozen, mummified man that some Swiss hikers found in the Swiss Alps in, I think, the mid-1980s. But this mummified guy had been frozen for over 5,000 years, and in a particularly warm summer, the ice melted, and these hikers found this mummified body laying there pretty well preserved. So they turned the body into science in Switzerland, and all these scientists looked at it like, oh wow, what was he eating? What was he wearing? They looked at his stomach contents. You could see the plants he was eating and his cool sandals and his clothes, and got a real nice snapshot of somebody from 5,000 years ago in Europe. And then they tested him for diseases. And it turns out that Otzi the Iceman had Lyme disease. He had Borrelia, which is the spirochete that causes Lyme disease. He had it. So not only does this say that Lyme disease is quite ancient, but that people were obviously getting infected back then. But the most important thing is that around his belt, he had a belt on, was a little leather pouch. And in that pouch was, guess what? The shelf mushrooms, polypore mushrooms. He had a birch polypore, which is really similar to reishi mushrooms, and another mushroom. And I was like, oh my God. And I dropped the magazine right then and there, and it was like he was treating his Lyme disease. He must have been treating his Lyme disease. Either he went to a shaman, or he was a shaman, or something. And National Geographic didn't talk about that. I don't think many people, if anybody, put that together, but I did right away, and it was like, okay, this is a confirmation that what I was seeing with these intuitive, with these remedies, with these mushrooms coming to me, was that there is what I call the holographic medicine chest. And that is, if we've been evolving and adapting on this planet for thousands and thousands of years with all these plants and animals and minerals and snakes and trees and all of this stuff, that there's this sort of medicine chest that's out there, and that we can access it through our flesh, through our body, that are just in a way that a dog craves grass when it's sick, or there's certain animals that will eat certain herbs. I believe that we have that same ability to listen to our bodies, and that our bodies will actually show us what it is that we are needing to heal. So I began to hone that practice and build that practice, that intuitive practice, like it was a muscle. And I started coming up with other remedies as well, just feeling into the pain, feeling into the tissue, and holding it lovingly and asking, like, what do you need? And working with my sensory perception. What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What does it look like? What does it taste like? What does it sound like? What does it remind me of? The sensation of the pain, and just really using the sensory perception, I call it, to intuit your own remedies, or what might be unique to you. So the mushrooms were the very first thing that came to me. So what I did is I ordered them online, and I ordered the raw mushrooms, and I put a scoop of each. I put a scoop of reishi, and a scoop of chaga, a scoop of turkey tail, in a big hot thermos, and I just carried those around with me every day. And I just drank those hot mushrooms every day. And I came out of Lyme disease in about 2009. The mushrooms weren't a miracle cure. There were many other things that I had to do to get to that place. But what the mushrooms did is they helped, I believe, strengthen my immune system. And eventually it wasn't some pill that killed the Lyme. It was my own immune system overcoming it and burning it out. And the mushrooms were a really key part, because I believe that they smarten your immune system. They make your immune system smarter. Because Lyme disease has a way of hiding out. It mutates and it lays eggs, and it can be really sneaky. So you have to get your immune system up 120%. So you see it and say, I gotcha. So that's my little spiel on medicinal mushrooms. And if you like this talk, there's more talks on www.liberatinglime.com, and you can also check out Liberating Lime on Instagram. And look for my book coming out on Simon & Schuster in the winter of 2021 called Liberating Yourself from Lyme. Thanks everyone. Have a good Burning Man.